Hey, I don't know who's on the other end of this. This is just Guillermo from Maxwell Leadership. I'll be doing the restream of this to the other social platforms. The only reason I'm here.
While Andrew's moving the table in the middle of our webinar.
We read you loud and clear. Thank you for telling us.
All right. Andrew, I only reclaimed host so that I can start the stream.
afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us in the world. Welcome to launch day for our new book from Dr. Tim Elmore called I Can't Wait, 52 Stories of Amazing Kids. My name is Patrick Irwin, and I will be your pseudo host today. I'm the curriculum director here at Growing Leaders, and I get the pleasure of working with Dr. Elmore and our entire team in making things happen for young people, chasing our great mission of empowering young people with the skills they're going to need to lead in real life. And if you know anything about Growing Leaders, we love to have some fun. If this is your first time with Growing Leaders, we love to have some fun. So I'm going to start with a game to kind of tee up the theme of the day, and that game is called...
Wait! Don't tell me!
Wait, don't tell me. Perhaps you have heard of the NPR, the very famous NPR program called Wait, Don't Tell Me. And because today's book is called I Can't Wait, we wanted to play a little game around the name Wait. So there's two versions of wait in the English language, right? W-A-I-T, W-E-I-G-H-T. And so what I want you to do, follow my clues to see if you can guess a famous phrase that either includes the word wait or the word wait. Let me give you an example. First one is, a frustrated parent might say to a child, just give me 60 seconds, please. There's a very famous phrase that goes along with that. You probably say it daily. Think about 60 seconds. The phrase you would be looking for is, wait a minute, right? I don't know if you've ever looked at your kid and just said, wait a minute, I just need a minute. I'm on the phone, I'm cooking dinner, it doesn't matter. It seems like sometimes children don't want to be told that, right? So let's play the game. Next phrase that includes the word wait or the other word wait is this. So good things are happening, but I'm worried that some footwear might fall from the sky. Good things are happening, but I'm worried that some footwear is about to fall from the sky. What very famous phrase, including the word wait, might that be referring to? Give you about to. Oh, Allie, nailed it. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. I have no idea what that means, but it's a phrase that we all use. Good things are happening. I'm expecting bad things to come along, so I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Let's do a couple more. In this phrase, I'm feeling a bit like Atlas. I've got too many problems to carry around on the top of my torso. What's the top? Okay, D. Hoff. Okay, Nancy. I got the weight of the world on my shoulders. Lots of you got that one. Josh, Marco, Dr. Rob coming in here on that one. Very good. You're starting to get the hang of it. Here's another one. Much like a trip to Disney, let's go really fast to get there, only to find that the lines are really long. What do you think? Yeah, Anna and Allie got this one. Hurry up and wait. I don't know if you've ever been to Disney. I have. It's right around the corner. Well, no, it's not. It's about 8 hours away, but been there plenty of times. And it's like, hurry, 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 hurry. Let's get in line. Oh my gosh, my favorite thing in the world, waiting in line. Said no one ever. All right, team, here's another one. You might say this to a colleague or a team member. We need you to do your part. We need you to contribute. What are we saying to that person using the word, oh, I didn't even push the button. Let me say that again. Dr. Bob, you got it. We need you to pull your own weight. Pull your weight, bro. I don't know if you work with that guy, but it seems like we all work with that guy in some form or fashion. Last one. This is something that might be said by a child around this time of year, around the holiday season. I'm so excited about the holiday break. Why won't it get here faster? Amy, Steve, come on, keep coming. I can't wait. I can't wait for the holidays. I can't wait to open my presents. I can't wait for this thing. And you already know it. This is our theme for today. I Can't Wait is the name of the book. And Tim's going to tell you all about what that means. Why did he call it that? What are we not waiting for? And to get ready to kick this book off, we shot a book trailer. And so in shooting that book trailer, we had Dr. Tim out in the field. So we let him out of his cage and let him go out and talk to people. And he did a great job, as he always does. And so let's watch this book trailer. When we come back, you're going to find Dr. Tim and our Vice President of Content, Andrew McPeak, sitting at a table ready to talk to you about this amazing book. Check out the trailer.
I've spoken to many parents and teachers who struggle to really connect with kids today. Those young people are either isolated on a portable device or they just have short attention spans. If this sounds familiar, I have some good news for you. For 40 years, I've been collecting stories, inspirational stories of kids who've changed their world. Instead of getting lost on a video screen or a phone, they got up and did something in their community that somehow made it better. They solved problems and served people. I decided to put their stories in a book called I Can't Wait, 52 stories of kids who changed their world that you can discuss together. It's perfect for a classroom or a home where teachers or parents can read through a story together, then talk it over, and even watch a video to see more about this young leader who did something amazing. Did you know that a middle school kid named Virgil saved 17 lives in Hurricane Harvey? Or did you know that a teen named Anne created a flashlight powered by the body heat from your hand to help a friend overseas who had no electricity to do her homework? Or did you know an elementary school student named Lucy sewed over 1,100 blankets for people who needed them in 29 countries? Or did you know Isaac Newton was a college student when he discovered the law of gravity and came up with a subject of calculus? It's crazy what these young leaders have done. Often, we only hear stories of kids who've gotten into trouble on the news. But there are loads of kids who've done incredible things instead of waiting till they're an adult to do them. And I put this collection together, one a week for a whole year for you to discuss.
Today, a lot of negative things are published about young people and about education, and it gave them the chance to see that indeed there are young people who are accomplishing incredible things.
My favorite story in the book I Can't Wait is about a girl named Anne who provided a flashlight that didn't need batteries but was powered by body heat for her friend in a different country. This shows that with dedication and courageousness, you can make a difference in the world you live in.
I think my favorite story from I Can't Wait is Virgil Smith's. He inspires me to be a leader wherever I am and to use the resources around me to help everyone, even if that's an air mattress during a hurricane.
The main part I liked in I Can't Wait was how there were so many young kids who, despite adversity, were able to overcome their problems and still succeed and do well.
I like this book, I Can't Wait, because it gives encouragement to not give up on your dreams.
As a dad, I'm always looking for books that can help my kids have dreams, have aspirations for their life. And when I came across I Can't Wait, I thought this was a perfect book for my kids so they can go through stories by stories, so they can see how kids younger than them, older than them can have dreams and they can try to achieve them. So I just wanted that for my kids, and this book did that.
If you want a great conversation starter that will motivate everyone in your classroom, family room, or dining room, or at bedtime, grab a copy of I Can't Wait, available before the holidays. Just go to ican'twaitbook.com.
Well, welcome everybody. It's so fun to see that trailer, and I love hearing from all those kids. We didn't tell them what to say. We just said, tell us what your favorite story was.
That's right.
But it was such a great experience, and it's so exciting. You work on a book for a really long time, and then one day, launch day shows up. So it's here, and we're holding it, and this is really exciting. Just as a quick word of introduction, Patrick mentioned, my name is Andrew McPeak. I'm the Vice President of Content here at Growing Leaders. Well, alongside me is, of course, Dr. Tim Elmore. And Tim, I want you to start by talking about what I think makes this book so unique. You started Growing Leaders, where you're working with a lot of adolescents. In fact, we call this the hat room. We've got hats of different university students we've worked with. But this book is actually really for a younger cohort. And so what was kind of the inspiration for you gathering these stories together and bringing this book to life?
Well, gosh, for over 40 years throughout my career, I've loved telling vision building stories to kids, about kids. I think it just, once we identify with a person in the story, we're more apt to say, maybe I could do that too. So this book actually started 20 years ago. You know, sometimes we work several years on a book. This was 2 decades. But I was telling these stories and I thought to myself, one day I ought to put these together, you know, so that a mom or a dad or a teacher or a coach or a youth worker could go, I'm going to sprinkle those throughout my series or my curriculum or whatever. So this is really designed to be used in a home or a school where kids just catch a vision for what they might do besides just graduate when they're done.
I love that. Yeah. So you've been working with kids of different ages for 40 years.
Yeah.
And it feels like I've got to spend quite a bit of time with you over the last several years.
Yeah.
It feels like you have just as much passion for working with kids as you do today as you did 40 years ago. I didn't know you back then, but what is it that gives you so much hope about kids, and why do you love working with students so much?
Well, first of all, I saw these stories spark my own kids at dinner time, meaning I just bring it up once a week. They didn't even know what night, but here's a story or here's a story. And I watched my own kids, who were pretty laid back by nature, just, wow, that's really cool. I didn't even think somebody could do that at 12 or whatever. But I tell you what really, really ignites me. Every new generation of kid, all through the centuries, certainly our generation, sees the mistakes the adults have made. They may not say it, Mom, Dad, you're making big mistakes, right? But they see, for instance, what's happening in our nation or the world and go, that's not right. And so the newer generation has a little bit of visibility on new ways something could be done. So I think I'm a baby boomer. Back in the 60s, I remember watching on TV. I was a child, but there was a generation marching in the streets, protesting for equal rights and social justice. Think about what we just saw 3 years ago. Same thing. It was a new batch of young leaders, and whatever you agree about their methodology, they were saying, why aren't we done yet with this civil rights thing? So I think we need to instill hope in a new generation for them to pick up the baton and say, let's do the new iteration on what we need to get done and what we should have gotten done maybe years ago.
And that's the thing that unites all of those two different stories is it was kids.
That's so true.
Who have that passion and that heart and that drive to go, we can make a difference here.
They saw more problems needed to be solved and more people needed to be served, and they went after it.
I love it. I love it. So I want to actually talk about the resource itself. 52 different stories. There's not, I mean, it's pretty simplistic, right? You drew a photo of each of these kids, which is pretty amazing. So there's one of Tim's drawings in there, but then it's a couple pages of a story and a couple discussion questions. So why is it you feel like a resource like this could be so powerful in impacting and developing a young kid?
Well, I'm just going to be really blunt, okay? So get ready. In my home and in probably millions of other homes of families that I know right now, here's the conversation at dinner time. How was school today? Fine. What'd you learn? Nothing. Okay, pass the green beans, would you? You know, and I'm being silly, but I think we just don't know how to connect. And the kids get bored more quickly, I think, than even in my generation. So I wanted to have a once a week experience for an entire year, 52, where maybe you bring up a story of a girl or a boy, 7 years old, 17 years old. There's a wide range. In fact, these stories are ages 5 to 24.
Okay.
So there's a big window. You'll find a teen, you'll find an elementary school kid, you'll find a young adult. Isaac Newton was a college student when he figured out the law of gravity. That's amazing. So anyway, I found when I did these with my own kids, now we got something going. And they're talking about movies they saw or what a kid did on the campus the other day. And now we've got a real, authentic conversation instead of a fake one like, how was school? Fine. You know?
We're digging deeper, but we're also recognizing the power of story, right? To give them an imagination for what's possible in their own lives.
It's really true.
So you mentioned that a lot of these stories you actually first heard and shared with your kids, but I want you to imagine that your kids were kind of the age range for this book right now. They're quite a bit older than that at this point. How would you be using this book? You mentioned a couple of things, but how would you use it?
Just to put it quickly, I would use it at mealtime or bedtime or drive time.
Okay.
I think those are the most logical. You're driving to school or driving to wherever you are, you got 15, 20 minutes. That's time for that. Why don't you read one of those stories and let's talk about it. Bedtime. My wife accused me of prolonging bedtime because we would act out the story. We wouldn't just tell the story. We'd act it out. I'm Mr. Drama.
She's thinking, they need to be asleep 30 minutes ago.
That's exactly. You know Pam.
Yes, I do.
So she go, all right. She go, they're yours. They're yours. But I loved it because, and I think my kids did too, because, you know, it prolonged actually going to sleep. But they were so fun. And those stories, I think, are indelibly etched in their minds, many of them anyway, to this day. So bedtime, mealtime, drive time are, I think, the best times if you're a parent in a home.
Okay, love it. So here's my final question for you. Then I'm going to actually step out and let you teach us some. But you've got 52 stories here. I have to ask, do you have a favorite one? Which one sort of rises to the top for you?
Oh gosh. You know what? This is like saying, which child do you like best? They're all my babies. But I do plan on sharing the story of Louis. Louis' story when he was just a young kid, actually 3, it started. And his life was amazing because of what he chose to do with a hardship that he had. So I will tell that story in just a little bit.
Awesome.
But I can hardly wait.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get out of the way. I'll come back and kind of give these folks an understanding of where they can pick this book up and how it might be used. But for now, I'm going to hand you the control and let you give us some of the inspiration behind this book.
Sounds good. Thanks, Andrew. Folks, thanks for taking some time out of your day and tuning in. I really am grateful. I know you got a lot of things you could do, but I'm hoping you're thinking about your own environment. Whether you're a teacher in a classroom, like I said, a parent, there's so many ways that these stories could be inserted into your everyday conversation where now vision is guiding the way rather than let's just survive the day. You know, haven't you had weeks, parents, where your whole goal that week is we make it till Friday and nobody gets hurt? You know, that's the whole goal for the week. But I'd like to share real quick that this book is really a first of its kind. There we go. And let me tell you 3 ways that it is. First of all, it's full of stories. And I have just found that everybody, adults and kids, just engage with stories. So you'll find nothing in this except stories. I do have some front matter and some back matter that you might want to read yourself about why I believe investing in kids today is the best thing to do with your time. But these are just loaded with stories. Second, it makes mealtime or bedtime interesting, not just a perfunctory, see ya, bye, go to sleep, come on, be quiet. Don't watch YouTube now, you know, that sort of thing. And then 3, it fosters growth and vision for families. We would talk about some of these stories, and it led to our family visiting Safe House Outreach, which was a group of people that fed the homeless, and we would go down and we would feed the homeless. So these stories are not only inspiring for, ooh, that can happen, but they're also inspiring to make kids think, I could do that myself. So I promised just a minute ago I would talk about Louis, the story of Louis. Here is the story of Louis. I've got notes in front of me, but I think I'm just going to summarize it for you real quick. So Louis was a little boy born in 1809, so over 200 years ago. His father had a tool shop out back, and one day at 3 years old, he was out in the tool shop, and he was picking up and examining the tools that his dad had in that shop. We picked up an awl, A-W-L. It's an older tool that we don't use a lot today, but it has a very sharp end and then a round on the other end where you can hold on to it. Well, while he was playing with this awl, little Louis poked out his eye. I mean, that's tragic for anybody at any time, but back then the treatments from doctors was poor, and he lost his eye. Within a matter of months, maybe even weeks, his other guy got infected and he went blind in both eyes. So as a preschooler, Louis now could not see anymore. What he enjoyed the first few years of his life was completely gone. And I don't know about you, but for me, vision is the most important of my 5 senses, getting to see something. Well, his mom and dad made a decision. When it's time for Louis to go to school, we're going to have to find a special school. And they rode many, many miles away. They lived outside of Paris to a school in Paris that was especially designed for blind kids. Long story short, the system they had for reading for the blind was very, very, no pun intended, it was very impaired. It was a system that the French army had come up with where soldiers could see instructions at night because it was, 3-dimensional, but it really wasn't helpful for kids. And Louis found out very quickly in the first few years, this is a drudgery to know how to read using this current system. So by age 12, this kid started working on his own system of reading for the blind. Have you ever heard of Louis Braille? He was the founder, the inventor, the creator of the system of reading, the Braille reading system. Well, here's what I love most about this story. He worked 3 years. By the time he was 15, he had this 64-dot system that he'd come up with, way simpler than the one they'd used before, which, by the way, was created by adults, and it was being used across the school. Many people were reluctant. They were reluctant because nobody likes change at any time, but they really began to see that his system was far better. So get this. By the time Louis was still a student, but he was later, he had become a teacher, and he was teaching blind kids using a system. Now, here's what I love most about the story. The tool that Louis used to create this system of reading for the blind was an awl. The very tool that had blinded him became the tool that enabled him to come up with a system to see again, at least to read. His problem became a possibility. His obstacle became an opportunity. His stumbling block became a stepping stone. The point of this story that you can talk about at mealtime, bedtime, or whatever isn't it interesting how sometimes the hardship we go through may be useful to solve the very problem that we have? I think adults need to learn this, but what if we could teach this to kids when they were still young? That's what Louis' story tells us. He seized his day. And by the way, this won't shock you. This reminds me of one of our habitudes. So if you know anything about habitudes, it's the most wildly popular thing we do at Growing Leaders. Habitudes are images that form leadership habits and attitudes. It's a way of looking at a picture and then learning a principle. So this one is actually in course 1, and it's simply called Opportunity Statue. Some of you, I believe, are probably nodding right now because you go, oh, I've read that one. That's in book 1. That's in course 1. So let me summarize Opportunity Statue for you. Thousands of years ago in ancient Greece, there were many statues. They were really into statues back then. And there were many great artists back then in Greece. But one particular statue you could find as you walked into Athens, Greece, thousands of years ago. It was a statue called Opportunity. And this is just a replica of it that you see on the screen, but you could tell it had a very normal body from toe to neck, but the head was weird, if I can just be blunt. It had long flowing hair coming down the front of the face, but it was completely bald in the back, which reminded everybody walking into Athens, opportunity was something you could grab a hold of when it was coming at you, but you could never get a hold of it once it had passed by. I think there's a lesson in there for you and I. And I think Louis' story is a great opportunity to learn this lesson from a story. You see, Louis seized the day. Instead of just getting caught in the trap of, well, I'm blind and I'll never really read well because of this old system, he was just young enough to think, maybe there's a whole new way to do this. And that's what the young almost always bring to history. Here's a new way of doing this. I love the statement made by Winston Churchill many, many years ago, probably 70 years ago. He said, there comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. I lost my screen, but I'm going to keep quoting it because I got it memorized. There comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity, when he seizes it, will fulfill his mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. And in that moment, he finds greatness. It is his finest hour. I think Louis Braille had many fine hours, but I think he might look back if he were with us today and say, my finest hour may have come at 15 years old. Or many of the other stories in this book, they might say, the greatest help I ever offered was an idea came to me when I was 16 or 12 or whatever. It's just amazing. But you see, I don't think we challenge kids to think this way. I think we way under challenge kids today. In fact, I think we assume this statement doesn't apply to kids, the one that Winston Churchill just made, because they're too self-centered right now, at least when I look at them. They're too immature right now, at least when I watch them. And they're too lazy or apathetic right now. But listen to me. If you look at children down through even the last 100 years, 100 years ago, 4-year-olds were doing age-appropriate chores around the house. 7-year-olds were working the farm, and it usually was a farm. 11-year-olds were leading that work on the farm. 14-year-olds were driving cars. 17-year-olds were enlisting in World War I as soldiers. 19-year-olds were getting married and having babies. And I'm not suggesting we need to go back and push that on kids today as teenagers. I'm just saying it's in them to be so much more than people that get lost on Instagram or TikTok. That's all we've expected. There's nothing evil about those things, but I believe many kids want something with high stakes. We need to give them vision to do something more than just meander through social media platforms. So what could you do? And maybe could this book just be a start? Tell stories, see which one resonates. Don't push one over the other. Read all 52 through the year, and you might find one or two or three really speak to the heart of these kids. That little girl you saw in the trailer, the movie, the book trailer, I call it movie trailer. The book trailer was a little girl named Kiara. We beta tested the book with their family, and they read through 3 stories. After they got through 3, she said, "Dad, give me that book." And she took it and she read through all the rest of the stories on her own that weekend. So that may not happen in your home, but I'm just thinking, these kids want something big to think about. And I'm asking, could we be the ones that offer that? So I want to wrap up with that thought. And I'm going to turn it back now over to you. What's that? Oh, you were saying keep going. Okay. I just got a cue from the weatherman. Keep going with the news. Okay, so I want to tell you a story. I wasn't going to tell the story, but I'm going to tell this story. I don't know if you know much about the history of the NASA space program in the U.S. I know there's folks here from around the world. Welcome, friends from Brazil, by the way. But the NASA space program in 1969, more than 50 years ago, ended up doing something that many Americans thought was nothing short of a miracle. NASA and Apollo 11 was this space flight where we landed a lunar module on the moon, and Neil Armstrong walked out onto the moon, and he made this famous statement. In fact, I want to play just about a minute or two of this. This is actual film from the lunar landing 50 years ago. Here it is.
I'm going to step off the limb. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Columbia, this is Houston, AOS, over. Houston, Columbia on the high gain, over. Roger, the EVA is progressing beautifully. They're setting up the flag now. I guess you're about the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene. That's all right, I don't mind a bit. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface. Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston? Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. You're in our field of view now. I'd like to evaluate the various paces that a person can traveling on the lunar surface. You do have to be. All right, you do have to be rather careful to keep track of where your center of mass is. Sometimes it takes about 2 or 3 paces to make sure that you've got your feet underneath you.
So I wanted you just to see that clip. There wasn't a real big climax, but that was footage taken on film over 50 years ago. And it was this man, Neil Armstrong, and Buzz Aldrin, the second guy, who actually walked on the moon. Again, something we thought may not ever be able to happen. And the reason we thought that was because adults were pretty much in charge of everything at NASA. It was kids coming in, not literally kids, but it was 20-somethings, just a little bit above an intern, that ended up being the key instruments at NASA to put that man on the moon. I don't know if you know that. So every one of these young people that were at their 20s were part of the operations team. They were at the control center. They all had a SimSU in charge. Now, a SimSU was a simulator supervisor. So they were the older adults, maybe in their 40s or 50s. They were coaches and mentors. But these young guys that were really in control. And the reason is this. In 1962, when President John F. Kennedy said, "I want to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade," everybody again thought, seriously? You think we can do that? But it sparked action at NASA in Houston, Texas. In fact, this is quite amazing. It so mobilized people that they realized this new technology we're going to need to put a man on the moon, we don't understand. We're 45, we're 55. Personally, I'm 63 right now. I would not be the guy they would want in charge. I might be a good coach though, and then find a 20-something, which is exactly what they did. So real quick, here's a few facts. The average age of the control center operators was 27 years old. Many of them were younger. The 27-year-olds were just 5 years out of college, and it helped them succeed. So many of them were MIT grads that knew the newest technology that they were going to need. The 45-year-olds, they had been to MIT in a long time. So the kids were the right ones to get in charge. So get this, the NASA engineering and math majors were more poised than expected because they'd done it simulation for quite a while, and then they'd done it at MIT for quite a while. And the naivete and the inexperience of those young staff actually fueled their success. You see, they graduated thinking, this is what everybody does in their job. They do something amazing when they get out of school. And NASA didn't disappoint them. I think far too often kids graduate, they have these dreams of doing something amazing, but they're let down. We don't really give them anything with high stakes. We make them sheriff of the widgets or the paper clips or whatever, and they don't get to do anything great. But I'm here to tell you, at the Control Center and NASA, it was dozens of young men and women, 1 to 5 years out of college, most of them in their 20s, that had their SIMSU, their mentor, but then they were in charge of getting this thing done because they were more adaptable and teachable. Here's a photograph of these young men and women. You can't really tell because they all got short hair there, but these are young men and women in their 20s. And here's the coolest thing, at least in my opinion. The one that was in charge of actually saying go after he checked in with all the different areas in the control center on why they maybe shouldn't land on the moon, it was a 23-year-old that was ultimately tasked to find any and all indicators that they should abort the mission. And when he relayed to his boss, who, by the way, was 27 years old, that they should go, it was a go. That 23-year-old was a young man named Jack Garman. Look at him on the right there. Doesn't he look like a football player at some college team? Well, he was just a year older than a football player at a college. I just want you to see one of the greatest feats, at least in my country's history, was pulled off by a bunch of young men and women. And they were all too happy to do it because they thought, why wouldn't we do this? I would be saying, why wouldn't we do this? I don't think we could do this. So I just believe, and this is what I want you to hear me say today, kids have a better chance to thrive when we help them identify an elevating goal. Do you mind if I say that again? Kids have a better chance to thrive when we help them to identify an elevating goal. For the kids at NASA, which, by the way, are sitting right here, look at those young men and women. Doesn't that look like a fraternity or something like that? Do you know what their elevating goal was? It's right behind them. It's probably too small for you to read, but this is part of the speech when President John F. Kennedy said, we want to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. They looked at that vision every single day they came to work. Is that not cool? So I guess I just want to cast a little vision to you. Do not give up on kids. Let's turn our frustration with them into fascination with them. Can I get an amen from the choir on that one? We need to be fascinated and say, what might you do that I wouldn't dream of doing? Well, this book is meant to be just a little bit of reminder of what kids have done through history, including today, and then what they might, maybe it's a platform for what they might do in the future. So, Andrew, I'm going to ask you to come back, and I want you to take charge of this meeting. You're a kid in my view. I do joke. Sit down. I do joke. I love this man, but he's not a kid. He's a man. But we joke a lot about how you're 30 years younger than I am.
Almost exactly, yeah.
But I look to you for so many things. But I tell you what it requires of me, to know it's in you, to swallow my ego and say, he might do a better job than me.
Yeah.
And very often, I'm just saying, Andrew, go, boy, go.
Well,
so,
we've started hiring some 20-somethings, and I'm starting to do that
exact
same
thing
thing with them.
It's so true.
It's something that we all have in common.
Yeah.
As we get older, we pass down. If we're doing it right,
we
pass
it right.
it down.
That's right. You're becoming a SIMSU, and you're finding
exactly
those
right.
operators.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for writing this book as well.
You bet.
Well, I am so excited to talk through how you might be able to use this book right now. Tim, as he said, has been working on this for dozens of years at this point, and putting this resource together. But it is a unique resource in the sense that it's written for a younger audience than we've ever written to before. Here at Growing Leaders, we've always focused on middle school, high school, and collegiate age students. But what we have realized with this resource is an opportunity to sort of expand that. We actually had somebody ask on the chat, what's the ideal age of kids for this book? We really believe it's going to start probably around 8 years old and go all the way up through the end of middle school. So probably about 13, 14 years old. Obviously, kids younger and older than that are going to be able to get something from this book, but we really think of that as the sweet spot, about 8 years old to about 13, 14 years old. Those are the kids who have a wide degree of imagination and see a ton of potential in their future. And we think a lot of these stories are actually going to align with kids of that age. So how might you be able to use this, or how might this be used with the communities and families around you? Well, naturally, we imagine that this is a book that could be used inside of the home. So just as Tim mentioned, talking through with his kids, maybe we might use it at bedtime. Maybe it might be read around the dinner table after dinner. Maybe it might be read in the car or on a family vacation or while doing a picnic. There's all kinds of opportunities, but we think this is going to be a great resource for families to utilize, parents and kids together. And that really is the goal for us, is that this is a resource that adults and kids read together. And those discussion questions that are a part of each of those stories allow for conversation to happen between two different generations. But we also know there are professionals who are working with kids as well. So these are our teachers who have kids in their classrooms, our coaches who are working with kids in a wide variety of capacities, and other leaders and people who are trying to develop kids. This would be a great resource to use alongside of other curriculums, perhaps as a break in between different things that you're doing, and might give kids an imagination for what could be accomplished. There's also another kind of exciting Easter egg along with this book for those who work with us or partner with us utilizing our Habitudes curriculum. I Can't Wait was actually specifically designed to align with Habitudes competencies. So if you are currently or imagining a future where you would actually utilize Habitudes inside of your school, on your sports team, or whatever capacity you're imagining using them, there is actually an I Can't Wait story that aligns with every single Habitude lesson. So you could teach that Habitude and then read, it would suggest reading page 15 and telling the story that's right there. So if you're looking for a way to sort of bring Habitudes to life in an even bigger setting and an age-appropriate way, we think I Can't Wait is going to be the perfect resource to go along with that. So that could mean a teacher teaches a Habitude and reads one of these stories right there. Or it could mean that a teacher teaches a Habitude and then suggests that a kid go home and read the accompanying story with their parents. We think this could be a really great way to take Habitudes all the way away from school and to the home and continue the conversation there. And that could be a really great partnership between the teacher in the classroom and the parent at home. We love, love, love the idea of this happening all over the place. In fact, we so imagined this reality that we wanted to see what it would look like to actually read one of these stories with a group of kids in a school. And so we did something a little special that I'm very excited to show you because it turned out beautifully. Last week, Tim took this brand new copy of I Can't Wait and went to a local elementary school here in Georgia where we are. In fact, it's just about 5 minutes from our office. And he sat down with a group of fourth graders and shared one of these stories. It just so happened to be a story about a young lady named Lucy who was almost exactly their age when she did something quite remarkable. And we captured this whole interaction and the story that was read there on video. I want to show this to you now because I am guessing you've got some kids in your life who look just like these kids, and you might want to use this resource just like Tim was able to use with them last week. Check it out.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Kids, I love hanging out with you. This is the story, Lucy's Love Blankets, and this is something she actually came up with on her own when she was about your age. So here it is. When Lucy Blaylock was 8 years old, she considered herself a normal kid in the 2nd grade, except for one thing. She learned how to sew that year to make a quilt for her friend's birthday. Following the party, Lucy asked her mom if they could make a blanket to give away to a child in need. Her mom posted the idea on social media, and they got 16 messages from parents who had kids who suffered from cancer, autism, school bullies, and other challenges. Well, Lucy's mother expected Lucy to select one of these children and give a blanket to, but Lucy couldn't choose. In fact, she cried thinking of these children who needed help, and she couldn't say no to any of them. So Lucy and her mom began sewing and finished a blanket for every one of them. Isn't that crazy? If you've never sewn a blanket or quilt before, you may not realize what a slow process it is. You can't create a blanket in 10 minutes. Would anybody agree with that? Okay. It takes patience and persistence, especially when you work for a long time and you don't see much progress. It's easy to become impatient. Anybody ever become impatient in here before? Me too. Oh my gosh. So Lucy was excited about giving these gifts away, and it was hard to keep working without reaching the goal in a day or two. Along the way, Lucy learned self-control. Let's describe it. This is a virtue that's difficult to develop in our day when things are instant access and on demand. You've heard those words before. But those who have it do great things. Psychologists call it impulse control. And it's the ability to stay steady, to manage your emotions and keep going even when you want to quit. I think we've all been in a situation where we said, I'd like to quit now and it's not time. Okay? All right. Instead of letting your negative emotions control you, you decide to control them. Lucy learned that emotions make a good servant, but a bad master. She and her mom decided to focus on the excitement of giving a blanket away to someone who really needed it instead of the pain of sewing one stitch at a time, day in and day out. Lucy's compassion outweighed her impatience, and she continued until she reached each of her goals. Her story was actually on TV. She was featured on ABC's television show Good Morning America, and according to the program, by age 11, Lucy had made 500 blankets for kids in 14 countries and all over the United States. Is that not amazing? She spent 2 hours with her sewing machine for each one. Every comfy spread comes with her signature hand-stitched inside a heart. Then, during the COVID-19 pandemic, you all remember that one, don't you? Lucy sewed 1,100 masks for kids and healthcare workers who needed them. That's 1,100 masks. She was patient. It makes me excited when I think of the kids getting the package in the mail and opening it, Lucy said. I always hope they'll know someone cares about them. It feels good to know that I'm helping all these kids feel loved. Isn't that cool? Isn't that amazing? And what I love is she did this even when the feelings went away of this is fun, you know, whether it's practicing a sport or whatever, we all got to do it. And that's the secret, I think, behind self-control.
Well, I don't know if that gets you like it got me. I actually got to be in that room when Tim read that story with those kids. It was so precious, and it was such a great reminder of how these stories are going to hit kids. They're going to remind them of their own capability. They're going to inspire them to think about themselves and what they're capable of, perhaps in ways they've never imagined before. We really believe kids shouldn't have to wait to begin to make a difference on the world around them. And hopefully these kids are feeling that way after that story, but we want this to happen all over the place. Now, it's not an accident that this book is coming out around the holidays, because we really want that we don't just give the gift of video games or entertainment to kids, but we also give them the gift of inspiration. I know when I think about this book, I'm thinking about my nieces and my nephews, who I cannot wait to put this book into their hands. And so if you're looking, or if you're thinking about a kid right now who this might make a good Christmas gift for them, we highly encourage you to pick it up in that capacity. And if you go to our website, we actually have bulk order pricing available. So the more you buy, the more of a discount that you'll get. I want to tell you about 2 more opportunities if you were to pick up this book. First of all, we made a decision early on that we didn't just want the books, even though they have visuals in them. Tim drew a photo for every single one of the kids in the book. We also wanted these stories to come to life. We're in the 21st century after all. So on our website, ican'twaitbook.com, there's actually a special place called Discover 52 Stories. And after you put in your email, you'll get free access to be able to see videos on there for all 52 stories. And so if you were to read one of these with a kid and then you wanted to see this come to life with them, it'd be a really great way to kind of pop over there and then see what did Virgil look like? What did he actually do after I read that story about Virgil Smith? So that's a really great opportunity. Another opportunity at your fingertips is if you buy a copy of this book today. This is available for our pre-order folks. It's also available just for today only. If you buy a copy of this book, you're going to get a special invitation to an event that's happening next week, November 20th, called A Coffee and Conversation. This is going to be a really special time where you're going to be able to sit down virtually with Dr. Tim Elmore, and he's going to talk through some of these stories as well as answer your questions live. So if this is something that's interesting to you, make sure you buy a copy of this on our website today, the ican'twaitbook.com website. Buy at least one copy today. You'll get invited to be a part of this coffee and conversation. So that is it. If you want to find out more about I Can't Wait, go to ican'twaitbook.com. Make sure to click order, buy a copy today. You can get bulk pricing. You can check out on that website all the different opportunities that are on there, videos of all the different kids. And we've actually mentioned a couple of the stories in I Can't Wait up to this point, but we haven't revealed all of them. And so to reveal a few more, I thought I might hand it over to my colleague, Patrick. Patrick, there's a few folks who are in this book, who are actually names that we would recognize, but we don't know what they did earlier on in their life. And so we're going to have a little bit of fun to reveal a few of those people.
Yeah, we are. And I am thrilled to bring this to you. You've probably already figured this out, but Dr. Tim, aside from being an incredible storyteller and author, is a really amazing artist. I learned this when I started working here. I didn't know you could illustrate too, Tim. And so all 52 of these stories have a custom illustration by Dr. Tim Elmore of the person that we're talking about when they were young. And so we're going to play a game called Who Am I? I'm going to show you the illustration. I'm going to tell you about the person, and your job is to guess in the chat, get your typey fingers ready, who the person is. So here's a softball. I'm going to walk you through how this is going to work. This young person was born in Atlanta in 1929 by the name of Michael. At the age of 15, he won a speech contest, and we know him as a very famous civil rights leader. Several of you got it. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta as Michael King, and eventually ended up going by Martin. But he really got his start as a speaker and a preacher when he was young, when he was in his teens. All right, now let's play. Some of you got this already. Here's our next person. Who is this young lady? She was raised by her grandmother in rural Mississippi in abject poverty. Later moved in with her dad in Nashville, Tennessee, and became a news co-anchor at 19, but was eventually told, "You have too much emotion to be on the news, so we need to go do something else." And she eventually became the first woman to produce her own TV show. Y'all are getting it in the chat. That's Oprah Winfrey. That's so true. So, next up. Who is this young fellow with the funky looking face? He was sent home from school during a pandemic. Man, we have so much in common. A very famous apple hit him in the head, taught him about gravity. And then, he just did that little thing called inventing calculus. I hate him for that, but we love him for everything else. Isaac Newton. That's right. Isaac Newton sent home from school during a pandemic. It worked out okay for him. All right. Who is this young lady? You probably already know. This young lady began to speak out for girls' education rights in her home country at 12. This is a good illustration. She was actually shot in the face for her views on a school bus at 15 and became the youngest winner of the Nobel Peace Prize at 17 years old. Many of you got it. That is Malala. Malala is correct. All right, let's do a couple more because it's fun. This young person was born in Austria a minute ago, 1756, just after Bach died. So it's not Bach, if you're wondering. He wrote his first music at 5, and in his lifetime wrote over 600 pieces of music. You've heard his music all over the place. Maybe one of the most prolific composers in the history of the world. Got it, Alex. That is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The child prodigy died in his 30s, but not without writing hundreds of pieces of music. Last one, a quirky young lady for sure with the pigtails. She began leading climate protests at 15 years old, led the largest youth movement on the planet by 2019, and is the youngest winner of Time Person of the Year. Alex got it first, and then Marcos came in. Greta Thunberg, the famous young climate activist. Got her start very young and is still at it. Young people can do amazing things, and we've got 52 stories of that happening, and we can't wait to share so many more of them with you. Andrew, thanks for the airtime. Back to you, my friend.
Well, we thank you so much, Patrick. There are so many stories, as you can tell. And I actually want to close our time together by telling you a story that actually isn't one of the ones featured in the book. But I believe this story of a young woman named Krista is a perfect representation of what happens when kids start to see themselves and their ability to impact grow. Krista is actually a college student now. She's in Boston. But many years ago, she was here in the Atlanta area. And we found out about some amazing things Krista began to do during the pandemic. Like so many high school students during the pandemic, she was trapped at home, unaware of what she could actually do to make a difference in the world. But Krista is not one of those people who sits on her hands. She decided, I'm going to make an impact on the world around me. So about 2 months ago, Krista and I sat down for a conversation. And I actually want to show you that conversation now. We held this conversation while we were discussing one of our own habitudes. So if you're not familiar with habitudes, we use pictures and metaphors and stories to teach really important social and emotional skills. And the habitude in this video is called 3 buckets. It's all about learning what you can control and can't control and putting your life experiences in the right bucket. So you'll find out about 3 buckets, but you'll also hear the amazing story of what Krista was able to do. She's an incredible young leader, and I'm excited to show this to you. Hey guys, and welcome. Today we are sitting down with Krista Campbell, an amazing young leader who knows firsthand what it's like to manage challenging situations with wisdom. And that's what we're talking about today. So Krista, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So during high school, you went through an experience that's going to probably sound very familiar to everybody listening to this, which is this thing was going on called a global pandemic, right? COVID-19 comes along. It's disruptive for literally everything, and that's probably underspeak. I want you to talk about where you were when that happened and what that experience was like for you at first.
Yeah, so at the very beginning, I was just like everyone else, excited to have 2 weeks off of school.
Yeah.
And just have a little bit of a break. But as it continued to go on and as there was really no end in sight, I started to feel isolated and lonely and also helpless.
Yeah.
Because I was a high school student, had no background in healthcare or medicine. And so there was nothing I felt like I could do. And it was a tough time, and it really took a toll on my mental health. So
I imagine a lot of people felt that way, but especially for somebody like you don't strike me as somebody who likes to sit on her hands, right? You want to be an active person, and so it's hard to figure out in situations how to handle yourself and handle the situations around you, which is a perfect connection to our habitude today. And you're a living embodiment of this habitude. So let me introduce it to us really quick. So we call it the 3 buckets. You can see it here. And it's really an idea that's quite simple to understand. All of life, all the things that happen to us can really be fitting into one of 3 buckets. The first bucket is what's in my control. The second bucket is things that are out of my control. And there's a lot of stuff that happens to us
so much
like that. The third bucket is really what's within my influence. Most of the stress we often feel happens when we put the wrong experience in the wrong bucket, right? So if I start trying to control a global pandemic, I'm going to start getting stressed out,
Right.
right? Which is exactly what
Yeah.
happened to so many of us.
Yeah.
But when we put the pandemic in the I can't control this bucket, right? All of a sudden, opportunities start to unlock, and we start to ask the question, well, what is in my control, right? So at Growing Leaders, when we talk about these three buckets, we talk about how to respond appropriately. So if a situation is in my control, for instance, my attitude, that's a great example, right?
Yeah.
No matter what happens to me in life, I'm always in control of my attitude. If something is out of my control, like the weather or a global pandemic, I'm never going to be able to control those things. So really the best response is to just trust. This is all going to have to just work out in the end. And then the third category is it's within my influence. This is like my friend's conduct, right? I'm not in control of my friends, but I do have influence over them. They listen to me because I'm their friend, right? And so in those situations, I have to respond with wisdom. And so here's where this applies to you, because we at Growing Leaders kind of watched you from afar, basically do this exact thing. Go, okay, pandemic, not in my control. So I wonder what is in my control, and you came up with a really great idea. So talk to us about that idea.
Yeah, so I realized the pandemic was out of my control, and that was really overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I saw these healthcare heroes who were working these super long shifts with no breaks and no time to go out and get food because they're covered in COVID, you know, and no time to go home to get food. Also saw another aspect of my community, which was the local restaurants that were also struggling to stay afloat. They had no source of income because we were in lockdown. And so I wanted to kind of find a way to bridge the two.
Yeah, you saw two connections. You were like, wait a second, I think we might be able to help each other here. Yeah.
And so I started the Gwinnett Meal Bridge, which people donated money to local restaurants, and the restaurants would make meals, and then I would deliver them to local hospitals. So the healthcare heroes would get a really nice meal from these like fun restaurants, and then the local restaurants also had a more steady source of income. It was really awesome because after I got it started and I started delivering meals, we delivered over 4,500 meals and $4,000 worth of snacks. But after that, these restaurants, like once they started opening up for like outdoor dining or delivery and takeout and stuff, they started doing like roundup programs where they would round up to the next dollar, or people would donate $10 and they would deliver meals on their own. And so it just kind of kept taking off because people wanted to help and people wanted to feel like they were able to do something. And it did make a difference, and it made a difference for the community, and I was beyond happy to see that. But it also really impacted me positively because I was able to do something, and I felt so much better and so much more driven, and there was point to my life again, you know what I mean? Like it was really sad during the pandemic because it felt pointless. And so I felt inspired, and it made me realize that service was something that was like a part of me and who I wanted to be.
All from putting those experiences in the right bucket.
Exactly.
Right? Can't control this pandemic, but I might be able to help my community. Right? There was a great picture I'll never forget of your mom's van filled to the top with meals and snacks and all that stuff of you making an impact. That was so cool.
Yeah, it was really funny because we got all these donations for snacks, but then I had all this money and I was like, well, I'll buy them snacks, but like, how am I supposed to do this? So my grandma handmade me and my mom like masks at home.
Yeah, because this is really early.
This is before we had masks.
Yeah.
And me and my mom went to Costco and we got like snacks and chips and granola bars and desserts and stuff like that. But my mom's like, I hope they don't think we're throwing a party in the middle of the lockdown because we had like all these snacks.
It was probably one of the best grocery shopping trips of your life.
I had fun.
Krista, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk through this with you. And thank you for your remarkable example. I think you truly exhibit the power of this habitude. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, Krista's example is powerful to me. And even though she's not in this book, she is a living embodiment of all the things this book is about. One of the things I really love about Krista is just her servant heart and how much she cares. And we've got a bit of a surprise for you because I don't want the last word to be from us. I think the last word should be from a student themselves. So Krista is actually on the call with us today. Krista, I hope that you can hear me. I want to invite you to unmute yourself and show us your face because we would really love to hear one final word from you. It's so good to see you there.
It's good to see you. Thank you for having me on.
So Krista is located in Boston now, and so she's hopping on the Zoom call here. Krista, I'd love for our final word today to kind of come from you. You had some amazing leaders in your life who were encouraging you to develop and inspiring you to step out. So what word would you give us just about those of us who are out there who are adults, who believe in the next generation? How can we encourage and uplift the kids who are around us?
Yeah, I think what I find really important is to understand that not all leaders look the same. You know, leadership can come in so many different packages. And so trying to mold somebody into one shape of leadership is not necessarily beneficial to anyone. So trying to understand young leaders' strengths and help support them in those strengths and encourage them to use that. Like, for example, in this story, my strengths were in organizing, my strengths were in communication, my strengths were in networking, and that's how I made a difference. It wasn't in healthcare, it wasn't in other areas. So identifying those strengths and using them for leadership, because every single leader looks different.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Krista. I think you're spot on. And it's such a great reminder for all of us, right? We think that the next generation should do things exactly like the previous one did, but you're exactly right. We've got to go to them and go, what do you have to bring to the table? And how can we create opportunity to maximize that impact? Awesome.
Yes, 100%.
Awesome. Krista, thank you so much for who you are and for all the amazing things that you've done. Thank you, too, for joining us, even just for a couple minutes here. Keep at it. We're rooting for you from Atlanta.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for all the kind words and for supporting me and for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Yep.
All right. Well, we are here at the end of our time. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We are so excited to be launching this brand new resource. I can't wait. And I'm sure if we did our job well, you can't wait to get your hands on this thing. So I would encourage you one final time, go over to ican'twaitbook.com. Remember, if you buy a copy today, you're going to get invited to that coffee and conversation with Tim next week. Be thinking about kids in your life who you'd love to make an impact on, and this resource might just be one way that you do that. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you again to Dr. Tim Elmore for writing this book and for continuing to inspire kids all over the world. Thank you, Patrick, for leading us. Thank you, Krista, for jumping on. And most of all, thank you, all of you, for making the impact on the next generation that we know you are. We want to continue to put resources into your hands to help you do that even better. Thank you guys for joining us so much today. Again, my name's Andrew. It's been an honor to be with you. Looking forward to seeing you later.